All right, guys, another good one for today. Not since the Beatles came over and had the British invasion back in the day have Americans been so excited for the British to come back to America. So today I have some good mates of mine. Known these guys for a while. They are pioneers in the industry and with some big news to share with everyone. So I've got the two top guys over at Precision Fuel and Hydration. First off to introduce is the founder, Andy Blow. Andy was a professional triathlete, had a pretty impressive career with some top 10 finishes in Kona. And probably his Achilles heel in racing was nailing his hydration and electrolytes. If you've heard any of my podcasts, you know this is a very big deal for me. And I am grateful that Andy experienced these dehydration, electrolyte issues, and cramps because basically that led us to where we are today. Andy has a degree in sports and exercise science from the University of Bath. And for a long time, Andy was my long-haired cohort in the industry. And I will say, my hair has gotten a little shorter, but I feel like Andy completely sold out and went with the corporate, very, very clean cut, looking good, Andy. So a couple years ago, Precision came out with what I refer to as a brimless visor, kind of a headband. And Andy, was that a self-serving introduction to control the locks while training?
Yeah, when you sweat as much as I do, John, and when I was blessed with hair as long as yours, it was an essential piece of equipment. Yeah.
All right. We also have with us the Precision Fuel and Hydration CEO, Jonny. He is an elite kayaker, member of the British kayaking team previously. He holds a master's degree in engineering from the University of Surrey. And I was just educated on something that there is a large chasm between rowers and kayakers. So if there is any confusion, do not be confused. Jonny is a kayaker, not a rower. This was about as faux pas as the mistake that I made a while back when I referred to our dietitian as a nutritionist. Apparently, it's one of those mistakes that I am not allowed to make, so I stand corrected. So Jonny's got a little less hair than Andy and I. He's never been in the hunt for the long hair contest. So, Jonny, University of Surrey. The only thing I know of is the Surrey Hill ride on Zwift. Is that a real thing, and have you done it?
I have ridden that Box Hill, actually. It's a beautiful place to ride. Obviously, the Olympic road ride went up there in 2012.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's a great place to ride. Ride London goes out at Box Hill as well. So it's a beautiful spot. But yeah, I really enjoyed my time in Guildford. Fantastic university. Yeah, I spent 5 years studying engineering there.
Very cool. Well, again, we could go on for days with you guys. We've sat and had long conversations, enjoyed all of those, but really want to share kind of the big news. We're here just a couple of weeks out from the kickoff of the 2026 triathlon season, and we've got some big news. I'll let you guys share. What is the big news headed into the 2026 triathlon season here in the U.S.?
Well, we've taken on a global hydration partnership with IRONMAN, which includes, for the first time, all of the North American events. A lot of people probably listening to this will realize that Precision, as a company, we've been involved with IRONMAN in Europe, first of all, then in Europe, EMEA and Oceania for a couple of years. And now we've gone fully global. So all of the major IRONMAN events right across North America and everywhere else, you'll have Precision Hydration 1000 as the on-course electrolyte product, and we couldn't be prouder to be part of the big Ironman circus.
Yeah, and this is something that as someone who is related with Precision, and I get the feedback. This has been asked for a long time. I personally wanted it. I'm super excited to race this year with Precision on course, and I know there's a lot of other folks on there as well. So Andy, you mentioned that the PF1000 product will be on course. How is that going to be delivered to the athletes? Is that going to be in a bottle on the bike course and in cups on the run? Is that how it's going to work?
Yeah, so PH1000 will be pre-mixed by Ironman at the event. It'll be delivered in 24-ounce, 750 ml standard bike bottles on the bike, and they're really good quality bike bottles as well. They're ones that will work well with your bottle cage. There'll probably be souvenirs that people want to take home after the events, actually.
Very
and
cool.
then on the run, it'll be in cups. So it'll be dispensed for you in cups. At some races, you might also be able to fill up your own soft flasks and things if you're carrying those with you. But basically, it'll be kind of more free form on the run, and it'll be bottled on the bike.
Just to jump in on that, John, I think as somebody who's done a lot of the North American races, you'll know that the bottles that have been provided to this point have been disposable plastic water bottles with a sports cap on them. And Having spoken to lots of athletes, and you see on the coverage with pro athletes losing these bottles,
Hmm.
we
Hmm.
work quite closely with Ironman through the negotiations of our partnership to try and improve that for the athlete experience this year. And they've been great in supporting us to do that. So there will be, as Andy said, proper bike bottles out, the 750 ml, 24-ounce bottles out on course, which is a big upgrade for races across North America this year, as well as
Yeah, for sure.
inside them.
Yeah, yeah, inside and outside. So I'm glad I asked. It was one of those questions I almost skipped over because I figured I just knew the answer. But that is, I will say, not as exciting as what's on the inside, but that is exciting because yeah, those thin, flimsy, basically water bottles that were repurposed, reused, they don't fit in the cages as well. It's much more easier to eject and lose. So just another thing that Precision is doing to up the game of Ironman racing, and another thing I know the athletes are really going to appreciate. Speaking of kind of frustrations with past, I know with the past electrolyte product, there was some confusion about not having any calories, and the PF 1000 is a no calorie product. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's actually pH 1000. So it's, and the 1000 refers to 1000 milligrams of sodium per liter. So it's an electrolyte replacement drink. If you were to buy it from our website or from one of our retailers, it comes in an effervescent tablet form. So one of those tablets goes into a 16-ounce bottle, and that gives you the equivalent mixture of 1000 milligrams of sodium per liter. It does get a bit confusing, so I'll walk you through what all of that means in terms of the Ironman experience. But because you'll be receiving the drink on the bike in a 750 ml bottle, it means that you'll get 750 milliliters of fluid with 750 milligrams of sodium in it. It's called pH 1000 because it's 1000 milligrams per liter as a relative concentration. But in each bottle on the bike, you're going to get 750 mils of fluid with 750 milligrams of sodium. And to put that in context, if you think back to when Gatorade was the predominant product, which is the most ubiquitous sports drink that most people know, that product has about half the electrolytes in it. So that had about 500 milligrams of sodium per liter. So this is about twice the strength in terms of electrolytes, but it's got 0 calories, whereas Gatorade was a 6% carbohydrate solution. So the idea behind that is that when you're racing long distance races, and especially long distance races in the heat, and a lot of Ironman races being summer events and in North America especially tend to be quite warm or hot, you're often better off or often safer what we call decoupling your fueling from your hydration. So if you're taking on a hot day, you might drink a lot of fluid. You might drink 1, 2, 2.5 even of those bottles per hour on the bike. And that's, in this case, is going to give you the fluids you need, the electrolytes you need, but none of the calories. You're going to supplement that with either gels that you carry yourself or gels and bars that you pick up on course, which in the case of Ironman are coming from Morton. So you've got their regular gels, caffeine gels, and solid bars available on course for calories. And what decoupling those two things allows you to do is that if it's a particularly hot day and you're going to drink a lot more, you're going to need more fluids, you're going to need more electrolytes, but you're not necessarily going to need more calories. So, if you were to drink twice as much on a hot day as you were on a cold day, if you've got carbohydrates in that drink, you could end up doing the carbs
Hmm.
and feeling quite sick and bloated. Or if you don't want to drink as much of that because it's thick and syrupy, you'd end up underdoing the fluids. So we think that the happiest medium for most people is to decouple your fluid and electrolyte intake from your carb intake, and that's what having the pH 1000 on course allows you to do.
Yeah. And again, last year I was probably at 20 different Ironman events doing sweat testing with precision fuel and hydration. And I would say that's one of the more common kind of corrections that we have to make is electrolyte consumption is not necessarily tied to a time interval like our calories are. It's going to be tied to our sweat rate. So as we sweat more, we're going to need to replace more. We sweat less, we need to replace less. But effectively, our calorie consumption is relatively steady based on our effort. So it doesn't matter as much what environment we're doing an intensity in. We're going to have 300-400 calories an hour, regardless of the temperature or how much we're sweating. That's a constant. But obviously, the amount of fluid we take and associated with that, the electrolytes is going to be tied to our sweat rate. So not necessarily a time base, but more of a following our sweat loss, which obviously is going to follow the environment. So yeah, that's something that I really do like is having that option to do, because yeah, if you're putting it all in one bottle, which is actually what I do, but it does get complicated a little bit because I either have to concentrate or dilute what I'm putting in that bottle based on the environment that I'm in. So right now it's pretty cold, so I may go through a 1 liter bottle in 2 hours, but so that means I have to double up on my calories in there. I need to have 2 hours worth of calories in there, as opposed to if it were warmer and I was going through a bottle an hour, then I would only need 1 hour of calories. So I think even that gets a little confusing, but getting them apart, yeah, you know exactly how many calories you're getting, how many grams of carbohydrate, and then how much fluid and electrolytes that you're getting as well. The other thing I found from doing hundreds of sweat tests, and you guys have done thousands, and something that I really like here is the fact that it is a 1,000 milligram product. What I found over the numerous sweat tests I've done, that 1,000 grams per liter or milligrams per liter is a very common number. It's totally random. You can't really predict what someone's sweat concentration is going to be. But if I had to make a guess, I would guess 1,000. So if I'm working with somebody and maybe they can't do the test, and it's like, well, how much sodium should I take in? It's like, well, my best guess is around 1,000 milligrams per hour. And as you mentioned, this is a lot more than they've had on course, really ever, I guess. So I told somebody the other day, I feel like this is going to make North American Ironman events faster, simply because more athletes are going to be getting closer to the electrolytes that they need simply by the product changing. So they can consume the same amount they've been consuming, but they're basically going to get double the electrolytes they've ever had. And that's going to put them closer to their electrolyte need. So I feel like they're going to race faster just because you guys have 1,000 milligram product on course.
Potentially, it is, as you identified, John, it's a bell curve distribution, sweat sodium concentration that we've seen over thousands of tests, and you've got your own data set into the hundreds, which mirrors that. And the average concentration sits in the mid 900s. What's the latest?
It's about 950. And I think the point that you make is a really valid one, John. The 1,000 milligrams per liter is a good starting point for most people. It'll actually cover what most of people need. If you're someone though who knows you don't have a heavy requirement for electrolytes, either because you've had a test or because previous experience tells you that weaker drinks are fine, the answer is to have bottles of electrolyte interspersed with bottles of water in order to lower the average concentration of what you're drinking. And if you're like me, or potentially like you, someone who loses a lot of sweat and a lot of salt, maybe 1,000 milligrams per liter is not quite enough. I would be supplementing that with some additional electrolyte capsules if it was a very hot day and I knew I needed more. So we wanted to get something. Ultimately, you can only really provide one product on course. Otherwise, it becomes logistically and cognitively very confusing.
Yeah, 10 hours into an Ironman, you're not going to be choosing between electrolyte.
Right. But the 1,000 product feels like it sits right in the middle of that sweet spot, covers most of people. And as I say, you titrate it down with water if you're a lighter sweater, or you look to supplement it with some additional electrolyte capsules or another source of sodium if you've got sodium in your gels or whatever. And that can help bring the number up for you. So we're hoping that is the most flexible tool for most people.
Go in with a plan, know your own body and your own numbers, and then we've hopefully trying to create a dynamic on course where you can be flexible to that, respond to the situation that's unfolding in the race itself, reach for water, reach for electrolytes, and reach for fuel separately, the three levers, as we call them in some of our content, to make sure that you're able to pull those independently at the right times for you as an individual.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, it's just going to make racing all the more better. So I refer to you guys as one of these overnight success that took years and years to arrive. So I've been fortunate enough to be around. I was thinking I kind of date myself, and Andy, I already messed up once, but I was around for the days when it was just precision hydration. And then because it was just the electrolyte products, and then the fuel was introduced a little bit later. So then it became precision fuel and hydration, PF&H, and then that's where I got all confused. I can't keep up. But tell us a little bit kind of about the background. I mentioned it a little bit, but tell us more about where it came from, how it became about.
Yeah, well, early in the, sort of in the late 90s and early 2000s, I was competing as a triathlete. You were a bit generous with my resume at the start. And I did race in Kona, and I got top 10 in some Ironman events, but not in Kona. Definitely not. I got on the podium in the UK, Ironman and half Ironman, and tended to race pretty well in cooler conditions. I was able to place in some pretty decent fields at that time. When I went to somewhere hot like Kona, and this happened to me numerous times in Kona and other hot locations around the world, my performance was well off the mark normally. I ended up in hospital a couple of times with a condition called hyponatremia, which is where you get your blood electrolyte levels diluted down. I'd suffer with horrible muscle cramps, I'd suffer with fatigue, and I'd just feel terrible for days after a race as well, like I was really out of sorts. It took a long time for me to realize and put two and two together. It was something to do with what I was drinking or not drinking, or something to do with my hydration. And it was actually through talking with a friend of mine who was a doctor, who said, look, looking at you and looking at your symptoms, it kind of feels like you're losing a lot of salt, a lot of sodium. And this is something we can test in your sweats. He took me along to a clinic. I had a sweat test, which at the time was pretty much exclusively used for the diagnosis of cystic fibrosis. And he said, I bet when you retest your sweat, it's going to come out very salty. And sure enough, he was right. We've talked about that average number being around 900, 950. With my sweat test, it almost always comes out around 1800 to 1900 milligrams a litre, which is super salty. Coupled with the fact that I also sweat a lot, as in I have a high sweat rate, so I lose a high amount of volume. What was happening in races, we deduced, was that I was drinking a lot, and I was drinking a lot of water. In Kona, I was drinking bottles and bottles of Gatorade as well, but it wasn't giving me the right balance that I needed. It was too much fluid and not enough sodium. So essentially, back in those kind of early 2000 days post sweat test, I started taking electrolyte tablets, salt tablets, and reducing the amount of fluid I took, but massively increasing the amount of sodium. And I've often said this to people. I've said it before. It was like a light switch to inflict. It was night and day for me. Didn't make me a better athlete. What it meant was that I could take those cooler race performances and translate them into the heat. And for me, that happened very, very late in my athletic career. So I didn't feel like I had masses of chance to capitalize on that myself. But what I learned from it became something I took forward into my post-athletic career, which was coaching, sports science, helping other athletes. And essentially, long story short, the sweat testing was something that I then introduced to athletes I was working with. And through a long, convoluted chain of events, that became a company called Precision Hydration, which is when we met you.
Yeah. I guess just to carry on from that point in the story, John, in the early days, we weren't really doing, or the vast majority of our work wasn't in endurance sport like it is now. So Andy was running a performance lab based at a big motor circuit here in the UK. So we had a lot of interaction with motor racing drivers. And in the early days, there was a lot of work with England rugby, and the England women's football team actually was one of the first groups that we sweat tested. And that just, as the chain of events there, members of staff move around different teams and organisations. And within a few years, we were working with a pretty significant proportion of the Premier League football teams over here. And then through a Red Bull endurance camp, actually, that Andy went to be part of and take the sweat testing technology to, that led to the Oregon Ducks actually purchasing a sweat testing machine from us as the first professional client in North America. And we gradually started to infiltrate US pro sport. So we now work with 2/3 of Major League Baseball teams, a significant number of the NBA and NFL teams as well. And until about 2015 or 16, that was the core of our business and revenue base, really. We would fly out, do the sweat testing and provide consultancy services to these high profile athletes, and then provide the electrolyte supplements off the back of that in an individualized fashion.
Yeah. So just take a quick step back. Andy, you make me feel better, because I feel like I'm very much in the same boat. It took me a long time to figure out this was an issue for me. And same thing. It's like once I got this figured out, it was a switch being flipped, and it improved my race results. It improved the quality of my training. It improved how I felt. And I feel like this is something like triathletes know, and even endurance athletes, we all know we need the electrolytes. We've seen the Gatorade ads and all those things. But I think there's a misconception of just how much, like we said, that kind of norm being high 900 milligrams per liter, when very, very, very few of the products offer that. And what's being offered on course until now was substantially lower than that, which kind of further validates it. But yeah, so it makes me feel good that you went through your whole professional career as a professional triathlete, and not knowing that. So it made me feel better about figuring out a little later as well. I mentioned it a little bit prior, but so we've talked about the electrolyte products. What about the F. So tell us about the F in PF.
When COVID hit around the world, a lot of our business, as Jonny was indicating, was in professional sport. So we were supplying a lot of professional sports teams. And of course, professional sport relies on stadiums being open and leagues running, and COVID shut a lot of that stuff down. So a lot of our business, essentially, like a lot of businesses, evaporated overnight. And at that point, which was, we'd already started to sell more of our hydration products into the endurance sports world. You were already a customer, and a lot of the people that you work with were on the radar of endurance athletes at that point, but only in a small way. And what we knew intuitively was that if we had endurance athlete customers who were buying electrolyte products from us and wanting sweat testing from us, those people were almost all consuming fuel products, gels, and they were asking us recommendations because they were coming to us for a sweat test. We were having an interaction about their race hydration plan, and the natural lead on question was like, okay, well, I've got my hydration sorted. Like, what am I fueling with? What gels do you recommend? And we, in the early days, we were pretty open about, recommending stuff that we were using ourselves. And it was only really when COVID hit that we had the time to stop and think and say, okay, well, if we're doing this, like, A, do we think we can make a better gel product or fuel product than the ones out there? And B, would our customers take that business and transfer it to our shopping basket rather than going elsewhere to get them? And so we spent a bit of time during COVID in the kitchen, literally with Mel, who's one of our athlete support staff, but who's also a very talented cook and baker, getting some advice on like, how do we actually make a gel? What's a gel made up of? And we made a bunch of batches and we tested stuff. And then very quickly, because we were focused at that time, we were grounded, we went very quickly from kitchen prototype to sort of saleable first rev of the product within a few months. And it very quickly validated the idea that, yeah, our customers want gels, and what's really encouraging is they want to try our gels. And we went very quickly, didn't we, to market?
We did. I think the key thing alongside the product itself was obviously the educational piece. And for us, there's a huge amount of smoke and mirrors in sports nutrition, as you know, John. And the hierarchy of needs at the top of that list of your needs as an athlete when it comes to fueling is getting in the right amount of carbohydrate for you as an individual, the activity you're doing per hour. And so, as you'll see with the range of products that we now have, a little bit like the quantification of electrolyte that are in our multi-strength electrolyte drinks, on the fuel side, the first thing that we make very clear and prominent on the packaging is how much carbohydrate is in each of those units of product. So our gel, the PF30 gel, has 30 grams of carbohydrate in it. That is a unit of energy that you can use. Similarly, the PF30 chew is 30 grams of carbohydrate. We have a larger PF90 gel, which is 90 grams of carbohydrate. And really, the theory here is quite simple. These are all tools in your toolbox as an athlete to pull out at the right time to achieve the numbers that you're trying to achieve per hour. And when you look at a lot of the other products that have been around for a long time, there are lots and lots of flavors, and you can go in all kind of wild directions with that. But even, across a homogeneous brand of different flavors, some of the products of the same format will have very different amounts of carbohydrate in them. And as an athlete, you might not be aware of that. So we wanted to make that front and center with the range of products that we produced and the planning tools that we've created to support athletes to understand what they need when they go out and train and prepare for race day.
Yeah. What was the first fuel product that you produced?
It was the gel, actually. We did the gel in the kitchen first, and then because of our background in hydration and producing some powdered products, we also produced the carb and electrolyte drink mix in parallel, and moved very quickly, didn't we, from prototype to launching that. Yeah. It was June 21, I think we went live with that.
Yeah, I think we went from concept to product from between November and June with the first rev, which is incredibly fast. And that as product development now is an iteration and product improvement is done in what I would call a more reasonable timeline.
I mean, we were talking about hair at the start of this call, John. I actually did have hair once, but it's things like this. You losing it all.
But what it did do was it was a pretty typical PH in those days, or now PF&H move to say, okay, we've got an idea, we want to execute on that idea, We want to see whether it's going to fly or whether it's going to die, essentially. And that was one of the ideas that flew. You know, the ideas that we've done quickly and that have died are the ones that no one thankfully remembers.
Yeah. Right.
We weren't hitting the right spot with them, but that was a one that was big enough to genuinely cause us, with a year down the line, to change the name of the company. You know, which also was a fairly hilarious process, if I'm honest, because we started off as Precision Hydration and we went through a very, very laborious process of trying to choose a new name, and in the end just ended up putting Fuel and next to it on, which I think was a good.
Keep it simple, right? Branding 101. Keep it simple. Tell them what you do. Yeah,
It says it in the title. So yeah, but that was a very PF&H thing. And without giving too much away, you know, we've been through a period. We've brought some other products into the market. You know, we've got a carbohydrate only drink mix now, which we developed with the Lotto Pro Cycling team. We've got Flow Gel, which I think was a big, you know, that was us witnessing and doing ourselves, like squeegeeing gels into a single bite bottle. You know, we've produced a much better format for that with Flow Gel. We've got Energy Chews, which and Energy Chew bars now. And, you know, as I say, without giving too much away, there is a little bit more product iteration and innovation on its way this year in that side of the business. Nice. And I think we've got some cool new products. But what we also try to do here is, you know, if you look at the sports nutrition market, it's often quite dispersed around brands having hundreds of different SKUs of products across all sorts of different ranges and changing them very frequently. You know, we're trying much more to be intentional and considered about the product range. We've always kept it quite small. Literally every product has a distinct use and a purpose, and we don't want to change that philosophy. Excuse me.
So one of the things, multiple things that I like is, you mentioned flavor, and there's basically kind of one flavor across all the products, or pretty close to it. And I would say Gatorade is the notorious one that is just so overpowering. And I mean, you get through half a bottle and you got that palate fatigue, and especially if it's warm and hot outside, you don't want to drink it. But that's one thing I really like about the Precision products is it has that light, is it a tropical flavor, I guess? But it is very easy on the palate. And yeah, if you're out there for double-digit hours racing an Ironman event, you are able, at least in my experience, it's much easier to continue to consume that product, even if the bottle gets warm or whatever, it's still easy to go down. Where some of those other products, there's just so much flavor to it. It's just, yeah, you can't stand to stomach any more of it. So love that. And then not on that same flavor palette, I will say the lemon and mint chews are, for me, they're dangerous. Like it's hard to have them in my house because, I mean, that's fuel. You need to save it for training and racing, but man, they're so good. They're just like candy. So if they're laying around, and yeah, I got to keep myself controlled. Those are just for training, just for racing. But yeah, if you haven't tried the lemon mint, and the original is fantastic too, but the lemon mint chew is second to none, especially on a hot day. That mint just seems to kick with the lemon flavor in there. And so something I haven't tried, but I'm actually looking forward to, and I want to integrate this in, is this new Flow Gel. So I would say this is obviously, and you can tell me if is the Flow Gel, is it a different product or is it the same as the gel?
So this is the actual ingredient profile for the product is no different to the existing PF30 and the PF90 gel. And just quickly to zoom out on that for those who haven't tried it, in the early development of that gel, we identified when tasting pretty much every other gel that's available on the market, most gels are actually more likened to a syrup when you look at it scientifically than a gel. They're not gelled at all. They are very fluid and sugary, as you'd expect, but they run. And we wanted to create something with a little bit more texture and substance to it. So our gel is a little bit more like a fruit preserve or jam, we would call in the UK, or I think you'd describe that as a jelly in North America. Yeah. So it has a little bit more texture to it than most gels that you try on the market. And so what that doesn't lend itself well to is flowing really easily out of a bottle. And as Andy highlighted earlier, we saw so many athletes emptying multiple packets, throwing those packets away, creating waste into bottles, and then watering it down and using that as their major fuel source for the start of the bike, an Ironman. And so we thought, well, why don't we create a larger gel that has about that amount of carbohydrate in it and engineer it so that it flows more easily out of the bottle? And so our Flow Gel is actually a PF300. It has 300 grams of carbohydrate in that pouch. And as I was saying, the ingredient profile of that product is no different to the other two. It's exactly the same, but we take that through a different process in the cooking of it so that it doesn't set as much. It flows more freely out of the bottles. The use case for it is you take one of those flow gels, you take the cap off it. If you want to use 300 grams of carbohydrate, you empty the whole thing into your bike bottle and you're ready to rock and roll. There's nothing else that you need to do. So we sort of identified this problem or workaround that athletes were using and then created something to satisfy that need.
Yeah. And that's what I was kind of getting at is, so not only are you guys revolutionizing and creating new product, you're creating new ways of utilizing it. And that's one of the things, it's kind of a trifecta with nutrition that I talk with my athletes. It's one, it has to work. It has to work for you and it has to be convenient, because if any of those are off, you're not going to do it. It's hard enough, as we mentioned before, to be doing things, 8, 9, 10 hours or plus into an Ironman. So yeah, if something isn't easy and convenient, you're gonna get off base. So I love the fact there that effectively it's almost like all your nutrition is in one bottle. And then, as we mentioned before, you decouple the electrolytes and the fluid from it. And that just makes it all the more convenient. You guys have an actual bottle as well that is utilized, so that you can keep track of how much you've consumed. So obviously we need to know how much we're taking in. Are we ahead? Are we behind? Are we right on? And you'll have a specific bottle made to go with those flow gels, which again, I haven't tried this out yet, but I mean, I love the idea of it, and definitely want to continue to look into that. So again, I've been around for some time of the company history, and got to know you guys and Brad and Sean and so many of the team, all really good, high quality people. I know you guys are quite particular about who you work with and the talent that you recruit. Tell us a little bit about the team. How big is it? Because I know it's grown exponentially in the last couple of years, but yeah, tell us a little bit about your team and who you've got working with you.
So going back to the start, actually, just very briefly, John, we quite famously in our world here started in a garden shed in Andy's garden. And at that point, there was just the two of us and our office manager, Dawn, who's still with us today, actually. So shout out to Dawn. She's put up with us for a lot of years, and
15 years and
15
counting.
years and needs the shout out for that. Fast forwarding to now, and we've grown a lot over the last 4 or 5 years, John, and super fortunate to have such a strong group of people behind us pushing this brand. But there's about 50 of us now, largely based in the UK. We've got a sort of campus office in Dorset on the south coast, which I like to sort of refer to you Americans as this location is like the San Diego of the UK. Really, we've got beautiful coastline, nice little microclimate. Anyone who's been living here over the last month will vigorously deny that because it's been raining non-stop.
Lots of retired people.
Yeah, lots of retired people. But it's a great place. We work out of an old farm building here. Our warehouse is on site for the UK. And then we've got some remote members of staff too who dot around. So Brad, our ambassador captain, he's based out in DC. And we've got various other members of the team out globally. One of the other things that we set up relatively early is our own distribution network globally, so that we can get to our customers more quickly and own that vertical and control that delivery process. So we've got a warehouse here in the UK. We run one out of Texas in the US, one up in Canada. We've got one in Europe and then one on the Gold Coast in Australia. So if you shop with us in North America, your products will be shipped to you from North America, from our North American business. The only thing that isn't American about us is the two of us and our accents, really, from that perspective. So a lot has changed over the last few years, isn't it? But hasn't it? But we're super fortunate to have such a strong group of people around us that continues to grow. We're hiring quite aggressively at the moment to continue on the trajectory that we've been on for the last few years.
Yeah, that's great. And I left out Jack and Lexi. I deal with those guys on a pretty regular basis, both fantastic. And yeah, like I said, everyone I've ever encountered is just super high quality, really good people. Brad is all over the country, all over the world, working with the pros, working with the amateurs. So he's a great ambassador representative over here in the U.S. So speaking of pros, I would say professional athletes and working with those guys is I would say a pretty significant, at least picture of what you guys do. Y'all are really forward in working with professional athletes, and I'll tell us a little about working with the professional athletes.
Yeah, we are. I would like to say that sports science support, getting behind high performance athletes, is literally in the company's DNA, because when, as Jonny mentioned, I career prior to PF&H was as an athlete and also in athlete support. So I worked as a sports scientist in Formula One. I worked as a sports scientist with my own company, supporting athletes from amateur to professional level. And really, it was kind of precision hydration with the sweat testing initially was almost set up as a consultancy business. So we would go into professional sports teams, we would work with individual athletes to individualize and systematize their hydration so that it was on point. So I think that sort of DNA does still flow through, although most of the world would now recognize us or think of us as a product company. A lot of the professional athletes that we work with, yes, they want to use our products, but the reason that the relationships start with the athletes is because they want some support on the nutrition and hydration side. And we have a very deep set of expertise in our team now with a sports science team who have PhDs, master's degrees. They far supersede the qualifications and experience that I have working with individuals. And that's really where most of the relationships with professional athletes start. Brad deserves a massive shout out for this because Brad is an ex-professional athlete. Brad is the first sort of triathlete that we really sponsored back in the, I don't know when it was, 2014, 2013, something like that.
Yeah.
And so Brad, after he retired out of racing, joined the company to act as our athlete liaison, essentially. And Brad does a phenomenal job in being at the races, talking to the athletes, getting them to understand what PF&H represent. And then it's really a massive organic word of mouth engine that's happened in professional sport. We started off in triathlon because we all had, or a lot of us had roots in that sport. Then we were exposed to Hayden Hawks, trail runner in ultra distance trail running. Hayden, who's become second at Western States, really world renowned runner for Hoka in ultra endurance space. And he approached us because he'd heard good things about the products and the brand and the way we supported athletes, and ended up being this kind of fantastic word of mouth champion for us in trail running, which then over the last few years has led to a massive acceleration in what we're doing in ultra trail running, to the point where last year we supported five of the top 10 at Western States, in the US, including the winner and the second place athlete. It's been, I'd like to think that we have a very strong set of core values around working with the athletes that we work with to support them. Yes, they definitely provide they fulfill a visible function for the company. Solvay winning in Kona last year, wearing our headband and with the sleeves on her suit is fantastic marketing, as is Yeli winning the World Championships for the second time in Marbella, again, fully branded up. That stuff matters to us to get the brand out there and associate it with high performance. But there's a level of credibility and genuineness with it, in that we actually work with those people. We're not just a big food or pharma company that's spending a lot of money to have athletes run around with our brand on. We're of the sport, we're from the sport, and we're supporting the athletes. And I think that's an important distinction that people within the sport hopefully know and they feel when they interact with us.
Yeah, I think it does. Great classic example to bring this all together. Brad, the pro liaison, actually brought Solvay over to where I was sweat testing at Lake Placid this year. The next day, she went on to win that race. So she won Lake Placid, and I'm not sure if that's what got her to Kona or if there was some other races. But then obviously she went on to win the Ironman World Championship. And so, I mean, I don't know if it's causation, correlation, or what, but I gave her that sweat test, and then she won the World Championship. So anyone else that wants to get a sweat test, potentially win some big races, come on, we'll get that done. Again, I'm not sure causation, correlation, but it's something there.
I think you can take full credit for that, John.
There's a slice of credit there for definite.
Yeah. I didn't screw anything up, so there's that. So apart from the products, you guys have, I would say, I don't know how to describe it other than just fun. It's part of your culture, and I think it really manifests and really shows in the social media stuff that you guys put out. Tell us a little bit about that, the intent, who's behind all that, and how much fun do you guys have?
We've got a fantastic creative team here, and I think another big shout out specifically goes to Dave Colley, who is our longtime marketing director. He was with us in the shed many years ago and was really the guy that taught me and Jonny about how to communicate to the outside world about our brand. Dave is the kind of creative director now, and so he directs a small team of very talented people who produce the graphics, the artwork, the videos, the social clips, and all that sort of stuff. And I think, like a lot of founder-led businesses, the ethos that we try and present ourselves with is our personalities. You know, it's sort of, we are high performance people. We take our sport seriously, but we don't take ourselves too seriously. And we've always just tried to express that in a very genuine and authentic way. I think if you try and put on a pretense and put on a front the whole time, sooner or later people see through it, or it cracks. And, you know, I think it could be summarized as what I just said. We take what we do very seriously, but we don't take ourselves too seriously. And that's what we aim to communicate in the way we present the brand. We try and do things differently to the way other people do it. You know, you see our very bold color schemes and that sort of stuff. That's very antithetical to what goes on in our industry and our niche. A lot of sports nutrition is quite crisp. It might be, you know, like black and white, or it might be quite serious and aspirational. And that works for some brands, and that's how some brands want to communicate their presence. But we feel like we want to communicate as part of the community of athletes rather than to that community. And I think that's a big difference.
Yeah, I very much appreciate that aspect. I would say that very much defines me as well. Very, very serious about what I do, and not serious at all about myself, and take certain things very serious, and others are just great opportunities for fun. So along with these products and these things you're doing in community, I know one of the other very valuable contributions that Precision makes to the sport and to the industry is just the amount of education that is out there. You guys have blogs. There's a video library out there with a lot of really good information. A lot of it revolving around nutrition, hydration, and those sorts of things. But tell us a little bit about that and kind of the intent of the education. What is the source of the education? Where's all that coming from?
I think that started early on when we realized that what athletes wanted who interacted with us wasn't a product or even a sweat test. What they wanted was information to help themselves perform better and go faster. And that all stems from education. You know, we've always said there's no magic in our products, there's no magic in our services. It's the magic is in how you take the knowledge that we can give you and the products that we can give you and apply them to your setting. The sweat test being a case in point. You know, that's one which can often be a massive unlock for people if they're not getting their electrolyte balance right in longer and hotter races. So again, like the athlete support thing, education's always been part of the core of what we do. And what we've always found is that if people are going to sign up for our email list and give us permission to jump into their inbox once or twice a week, we don't want to fill that up with junk and offers and marketing spam, because we all get loads of that every day, and it fulfills it fulfills very little purpose other than to serve the company that sends it. We've got a big team who spend hours in editorial process each week putting together content that's helpful, educational, insightful, and useful to athletes, to put that across to them, to try and add value, to try and show people that, yeah, we want to help you to go faster. A lot of that is going to be around educating you on how to fuel and hydrate better. But then it's grown arms and legs over the years. So you see other performance related articles and insights in the content that we put out. But it's always put out with a sincere and sort of just a good hearted intent to inform and entertain as opposed to sell.
Mhm.
And as a byproduct, we don't make any secret of the fact that those emails are successful. People open them, they read them, and ultimately, sometimes if they need stuff from us, people will buy something. But we try and be respectful of that allowance that people have made to get into their inbox and not clutter it up with junk.
Yeah. And I would say perhaps the most beneficial contribution that you guys have through the website is your nutrition plan questionnaire that goes through, and then the opportunity to set up a call with one of your consultants. And this is something that I just yesterday had a new athlete coming on board. One of the first questions I asked is, do you have a well-vetted nutrition and hydration plan? And even sometimes when the answer is yes, it's still like, let's go and do this. Let's set up a call with Precision, because I say a lot of things, but they've got some really good ideas and some even contrapoints and all to consider. So I think there's just a ton of value in both of those offerings and assets. So like I said, those 20-minute calls get I recommend those to everyone. And one of the things that I always say and include in there and really appreciate about them is the folks that are doing those calls aren't necessarily pushing precision products. It's I remember times I've sat in on them, or even back when I did my call. It's okay. What products are you using? And then let's figure out how to use them correctly. And that's even what I've said about a lot of products. That it's not so much that a product doesn't work; it's that they are not being used properly. And so I think there's a ton of value, obviously, in that service that is provided through those consults. That it's not pushing a precision product. I think the overarching feel and objective in those calls is to help those athletes get it right, figure out what their needs are, and then provide them a solution. And the great thing is Precision Fuel and Hydration has a solution should they need it. And I really do feel like that is kind of the objective and the approach of that call is at the end of the call, this athlete can have a well vetted hydration nutrition plan that they can go out and test and then further refine. But it's not a sales call. And yeah, obviously you make the products available, and I love the products. I think they're great, and I definitely recommend them. But it's not so much about that. So I think that is much appreciated. One, that you're providing that service, and two, that it really is a service as opposed to a sales pitch. I know Sean and some of those guys have been doing those calls for a long time. No telling how many calls they've done. I know I can contribute dozens and dozens of those that I've referred over. But yeah, so I just I appreciate that as someone who's in the industry, as someone who is an athlete and benefited from those calls. Um, I'm pretty sure it was Sean who did mine years ago. And what came out of that call was the Go bottle. And that is something that I integrated. I can't tell you how many times I've talked about it, recommended it, and we'll include more of that on another episode of the podcast. But that was just a great tip that came out of that call. And yeah, I've been using that and recommended it ever since. Uh, One thing I promise on the podcast is every episode will have an actionable insight. What is it that you guys would say? Just a quick tidbit of what can athletes do in their next training session, in their next race to perform better?
I think I'd actually just zoom back on the point you just made there, John. It's having the confidence to go and generate a plan, be it with your coach or nutritionist, or go and use our free online fuel and hydration planner to take charge of the situation and understand what you're walking into. Do that early in your preparation in the build up for an event. So you've got time to practice things and generate questions. Understand that your plan could be different to other people around you. Don't just copy what, the fastest person at your tri club's doing. Go and generate some information about your fueling and your hydration so you get some actionable figures to go and stick to. If you don't have a coach or a nutritionist, by all means book a call and come with questions to that call with us, because this person on the end of the call isn't going to come with a sales pitch. They are waiting for you to come with questions. And then you can stand on that start line with confidence that you're going in with a plan to hit X numbers, and also the confidence that when you're out there, you've got a toolkit to be able to lean on, to be flexible when you do drop a bottle. What are you going to do? Understand how you're going to be dynamic with that plan you've created on the fly to get the best out of yourself on the day. So prepare with your plan and have some sort of plan B, plan C, and plan D up your sleeve in case things go wrong, and set yourself up for success so that you can put all that good training to work and not have it undone by something so simple as just getting a bit organized in advance.
Well, guys, we're up on time. I know you guys are busy and even have another meeting to jump to. Even though it's late in the day there in the UK, it's morning here in Nashville. But thank you guys for taking the time today. Man, we're excited. I'm excited to have the product out on the course, and excited to see what comes next for you guys. So I know you guys aren't satisfied or not stopping anytime soon. So yeah, definitely looking forward to whatever comes next. Wish you all the best with your global partnership with IRONMAN and everything else that you guys are up to. And man, it's great to see you guys, and look forward to chatting again soon.
Thanks, John. Hopefully we'll see you at the road at an event this year before too long.
Oh, we
Of course.
swinging by Nashville for a whiskey at some point. Be lovely to see you.
There we go. We'll have it. Thanks, guys.